Hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is Jennifer McGuire. So today I'm sharing with you one of my current favorite die cutting hacks. I find that this is a trick that really is helpful when you're dealing with lots of little die cuts where you want to layer or do die cut inlay. It really is a huge time saver and gives really incredible results. I find it's best when you have a larger die that cuts lots of little pieces that you normally would have to spend a lot of time gluing together. This does it all at once. I have lots of examples for you and some other tips to share. Oh, and by the way, this technique results in 2 cards at once. All right, let's get started with this one. It has lots of dimension to it. All of those little butterflies have built up dimension. It's easy to do. So this is the new Waffle Flower Outlined Butterflies panel. This is a great die. I'll use it a lot today. And it's good for this example because it cuts a lot of little pieces. Now I want to apologize. I have this big bandage on my finger. This, let's just say I had a little incident in the kitchen and it's proof that I shouldn't be in the kitchen. I should be in the craft room instead. So I'm sorry about that. I hope it heals quickly. Okay, so I have a piece of white cardstock and I'm covering it with Altenew adhesive sheet. This is just double-sided adhesive and it really helps with this technique. I then remove the release paper and put another piece of cardstock on top of it. So what I have is a piece of cardstock, adhesive, and cardstock. It's just making it extra thick. Now I'm going to cut this using that outline butterfly background die. So I'm using 2 pieces of tape just to line it up. This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and you can die cut this with whatever die cut machine you have. Now because this is 2 cardstocks thick with adhesive between it, it will not cut through it all. That's okay. It looks like you cut and glued them all together. See that? Looks like you did die cut inlay, but really we use that trick of doubled cardstock, and this is a great starting point for today's technique. But keep in mind, you could stop here and have this really cool looking inlaid background that took no time at all. But we're going to step this up and build up lots of butterflies. I only want the butterflies raised, everything else flat. So here I have another piece of cardstock. This is just 1 layer, regular piece of cardstock. Doing the same thing and taping it onto the die, just so it doesn't shift when we put it through our die cut machine. Now here's a trick that helps with this technique. I have a piece of masking paper here, cut slightly smaller than our die. I'm going to put this on the back side of our die, right over all of those openings. So the cutting edge is facing down right now. Now I'll run this through my die cut machine as I normally do. That masking paper on the back of the die holds the little die cuts in the die once we're done, because there are openings on the back of the die. So now all of my pieces are held in the die, just temporarily. So now here on the left, I have my die with all the pieces still in it. On the right, I have the piece that was double cardstock that we cut earlier. On that piece on the right, I'm putting adhesive only on top of the butterflies. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but I'm putting tiny dots of glue only on top of the butterflies because that's the only pieces I want to keep. I'm using Barely Art glue because it has a fine precision tip, so I can put tiny little dots. You don't want a lot of adhesive here because if you do, it'll ooze out the sides and other parts will stick when you do this technique. So I only put adhesive on top of the little butterflies. Now I'm taking this and putting on top of the other piece, lining it up. It kind of pops into the edges of the die and lines up great. Now I can flip it over and you can kind of press through the masking paper and then remove the masking paper. And then leave this to sit for a little bit while that glue dries. It only takes a few minutes. So what's happening is I kept all those die cut pieces in the die so I could easily line it back up. Now when we take the die off, only the butterflies are glued on top. So watch, I'll peel out the extra here. This is the outline, which I'll save for my next card. All the other in-between pieces fall out, and look at that. All of the butterflies are 2 layers thick now. So much faster than gluing each of those pieces on. And don't worry, I'll go through the process a few times in a few different ways to help it make a little more sense. Okay, let's do that all again. I have another piece of cardstock, taping it onto my die. On the back of the die, I'm putting that same piece of masking paper. You can reuse it a few times. I'll run it through my die cut machine, and I'll end up with my die with all the cut pieces stuck inside. Now I'm putting glue onto each of those little butterflies. You can either put glue on the little butterflies that are stuck in the die or on your layered piece over to the left. It's really up to you. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to show you here what the glue looks like on each of the butterflies. You can see it's just a tiny bit of glue kind of towards the center of the die cuts, of the little butterfly die cuts. You don't want to put it close to the edge or the pieces around it will get stuck, which in this case I don't want to happen. So just put tiny little dots of glue on the butterflies only. Now I'll take our layered piece and line it up. It kind of clicks in place because you already have some butterflies glued down. Then you can press it down, remove the masking paper, leave it there for a couple minutes, and then peel off the background die. And again, you'll have your butterflies left behind. So now we have 2 extra layers of butterflies glued onto that background. We have that leftover frame piece, and look at that. So much faster than gluing in each individual piece down. I like that built-up dimension of lots of cardstock layered together. This is a great way to do it. I ended up doing 3 layers of the butterflies here. You could have done foam squares behind each of those butterflies, but it wouldn't hold up through the mail as nice. Now let's add the colored butterflies on top of those white ones. Gives us a lot of great colorful dimension. So I have a piece of white cardstock here, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and I'm applying Distress Oxide inks. I just wanted to get a partial rainbow background. That's one of the things I've liked doing lately. Instead of doing a full rainbow, just do part of it. So I'm doing yellow, green, and blue here. I used Blueprint Sketch and the Salvaged Patina, which is the newest color, and Twisted Citron and Squeezed Lemonade. And I just overlapped the colors going across the cardstock. Distress Oxide inks are very easy to blend, especially if you overlap them. And I like using them with my Gina K blending brushes. I do have a set of brushes just for oxide inks, so I don't have to clean them every time. And I have another set for dye inks, so I don't like to mix the two. So there we have a blended background. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. And we're going to do the same technique using this blended background. I taped it onto my die, put a piece of masking paper on the back of it. If you don't have masking paper, you could instead use masking tape to cover the back. I'm putting adhesive only on the butterflies. You can see our layered background over there on the left where all the butterflies are layered. I'll just take that and pop it in place, press it down, remove that masking paper, give it a few minutes to dry. Then we can remove the die, and all of those butterflies, the colorful butterflies, will be glued onto the layered white butterflies. Now notice some of mine didn't stick. That's because I cheated and got impatient and didn't wait for the glue to dry. I do recommend just giving it a few minutes to dry. But I was able to glue those on and look at that background. So much dimension and beautiful color. Love this die, and this technique works great with it. So now let's move on to the colorful outline piece over there on the right that we have left over from that technique. This time, I'm going to show you how to make die cut inlay very easy. Okay, so I have the colorful outline piece here on the right. It's upside down. I'm putting adhesive on the back of it and gluing it to a white outline die cut. That's just to build dimension. You don't have to do that. I just like that dimension. And I added a second white die cut behind it too. Okay, now look closely at this picture. Notice that the butterflies are white glitter paper, but the pieces in between the butterflies is just white cardstock. So we're going to use today's technique to do inlay of those glitter butterflies. I use the outline butterfly background die to cut from white glitter paper. I'm sliding my top plate off to keep all the die cuts in the background. I didn't use masking paper on the back of the die this time. I wanted to show that sometimes you don't need to. This glitter paper is thick, so although it cut through, I was able to take out the whole piece with all the little pieces still inside and set that aside. Now we need to create our card to glue all these things together on. I have a piece of double-sided adhesive that I'm putting on the front of a white note card. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So I'm covering the front of the note card with adhesive. Now I'm taking the frame and lining that up right onto the card. So now I have this card front where all of those openings is exposed adhesive. Now let's transfer our glitter butterflies from the large die cut onto our card. So I pick up the large die cut and lay it on top, and I try to line it up with the front of the card. I then can push through and make all of the glitter butterfly die cuts go onto our card. So I have it lined up, just pushing it through. You can use a piercer, any kind of little tool, and it just presses it down into the exposed adhesive that is below. I'm only pushing the butterflies through, not the other bits and pieces. So I continue to do that. It doesn't take long. You can usually use your fingertips to do this also. Then you peel off that die cut and check it out. You have all your glitter butterfly die cuts inlaid into that layered frame. See how it's kind of set back in there? If you need to, you can kind of press each down completely into the adhesive if it hasn't done so already. But now I still have exposed adhesive in those little areas between the butterflies. I'm just going to put regular white cardstock there. So I die cut the background from white cardstock and I'm lining that up with our card. And now I'm pressing through those in-between pieces into the exposed adhesive behind. Now we'll have all of those areas filled too. So in the end, we have this card with this raised, colorful frame. We have glitter butterflies and then a white cardstock background. Didn't take that long to do, and it is a beautiful result. All right, let's do the sentiment on this. Very simple. I'm using the new Waffle Flower Label Maker stamp set and coordinating die. This is one giant stamp, and after you stamp it, use the coordinating die to cut it out, and you end up with a bunch of sentiments very quickly. Let me show you how I did it. I'm using my Misty stamping tool, use my anti-static powder tool, and I have white cardstock. I'm stamping that large image with Altenew Obsidian black ink. This is a pigment ink. So after I stamp it, I can clear heat emboss it. Now, if you wanted to, you could just stamp this with dye ink and leave it, but I thought the shine on it would be really cool. So here I'm adding the clear embossing powder, and we can heat set it. Since this is a large solid area, I like to heat set from behind. It gives a smoother result to your heat embossing. After I've heat set the whole thing, I'll just give it a few minutes to dry or to cool, and then I can line up the coordinating die, tape it in place, run it through whatever die cut machine you have, and look at all these little sentiment strips ready to go. I chose to use 3 of them, which is sending paper hugs to you. Now I want those to stand up against our background, so I'm adding white cardstock strips on the back of each of those sentiment strips. This is just an easy way to add dimension that'll hold up through the mail. I will then glue these all 3 on the top center of the card. I don't want to cover up much of that background, so by doing these 3 little sentiment strips, a lot of the background will show. At this point, I'm finishing off both of my cards at once. I added onto both of them some little clear bubble gems to the background. They're a little iridescent, so they just add a bit of shine. I love that with this technique, we were able to create 2 cards at once. Let's take a closer look at each. First, we have our frame butterfly card. Now, you could have just put a piece of white glitter cardstock behind the frame and not done the inlay, but I like that by doing some glitter paper inlay and some regular paper inlay, it adds a lot of interest to the card. I enjoy doing those kinds of things, and this technique made it easy. It's kind of hard to see the white glitter in the video, but it really shines in real life. I also added a little heart die cut under the sentiment just for a bit of added interest. Now here is the other card. Check out that background. It's so cool with those raised butterflies. I just think this is a technique that is worth taking the time to do, and it would have taken a lot longer to glue all those butterflies layered individually. So I encourage you to try out this technique. It works really well with background dies that have lots of little pieces, but will work with other dies too, as I'll demonstrate soon. Now on this one, I did add a simple thank you sentiment. This is from the new Waffle Flower Thank You stamp set, and then I used the coordinating die to cut it out. All right, let's do another example. This time I'm not using a background die, but instead a circle die. But it has lots of little butterflies once again, so I thought it would be great to demonstrate with. And again, we'll end up with 2 cards. So I have a piece of white cardstock here, and I'm covering it with a piece of double-sided adhesive. You could use regular adhesive if you want here, but I find using double-sided is very helpful. If you do not have sheets of double-sided adhesive, you could line up rows of tape. I then add another piece of cardstock to this. So we have double cardstock like we did at the beginning of this video. Next, I have the Waffle Flower Circle Butterfly Shaker die. I ran that through my die cut machine, and remember you get that inlay look, but it doesn't actually cut through all of the layers. That's okay, we want this to stay in one piece. It'll help with the rest of the technique. I was going to cut that out around the edge, but then I remembered I have this die here. So I'll just use this to cut out that whole piece. So I lined it up, ran it through again, and it cut it out. But now it looks like all of those little pieces are inlaid on it. Now we'll use that circle piece and do this layered butterfly look. See how all the butterflies are layered? We're using the same technique as before. So I have a piece of white cardstock and the same circle die. I'll run that through my die cut machine. This time I didn't put masking paper on the back. Didn't think I needed to, but you can if you want. I'm leaving all the die cuts in the die, right there on my die cutting plate. I'm putting adhesive only on the little butterflies, only the butterflies. Now I'll take our die cut piece and lay it right down on it. This is the doubled up die cut piece. And it pops into the die and you just press it down. So you can just leave that there to dry. I'm impatient, so I try to move it off of my die cut plate onto my work surface and kind of push it around. Once it's dry, you can peel your die cut and all the extra white die cuts away from it. Since we only put adhesive on the butterflies, that's the only thing that will stay behind on our die cut. I can remove those extra pieces from around it, and you can see the butterflies starting to layer up. I will repeat that process 2 more times to add even more dimension to those white butterflies. So as I repeat that step, I wanted to mention that sometimes I found it helpful to put some tape on the back of the die or masking paper to hold the pieces in the die as we did this. But then sometimes, like in this case, all the pieces seem to stay in the die after I ran it through my die cut machine. I think it just depends on what die you're using, how thick your cardstock is, and how many times you've used the die. So just test it out beforehand and see if you need that tape on the back of the die to hold the pieces in place or not. All right, so now I can remove the excess here, and you can see we have a double layer of those butterflies. And off screen, I'll repeat that one more time. After doing that, it's time to create our colorful layer to put on top. Now for this, I used some stenciling, which is hard to see here, but you'll see it in the second card. I have a piece of white cardstock here that is about 4 by 4, and I'm just laying my die cut on top and kind of planning where to put the color. Now I'm just doing a rainbow of Distress Oxide inks going around in a circle. I just want to make sure that there is color in the area where the butterflies will die cut using that circle die. Notice I'm really not spending much time to do this. I'm just making sure each of the colors are overlapped enough to get a bit of a blend. Once I'm done, I thought it'd be fun to stencil on top of that. So I have the Waffle Flower Sunburst stencil. And this, I am taping the cardstock onto the die, and I'll apply the same colors but in a heavier amount. So I'm using a heavier hand to put a generous amount of the same color on top of the color that's below it. This will just give a tone on tone of this ray pattern over our little rainbow circle. I really like using sun stencils like this because it creates a natural focal point. Okay, now we can die cut this. I centered it on our colored stenciled background, and now I'm keeping all the pieces in the die. So this is the colorful piece here, and we'll do the same technique as before. I'm putting liquid adhesive on top of the butterflies. It doesn't matter if you put the adhesive on the butterflies of this layered piece or the ones in the die, doesn't matter. In this case, I could pick up the die, line it up, it just kind of pops in place, press it down, give it a few minutes to dry, and peel it off, and look at that. All of our colorful rainbow butterflies are on top of the layered die cuts we already put in place. And we have this negative piece for our second card. Now this you end up not seeing much in the final card, but I thought I'd show you what I did. I used a ruler just to create a glitter pen line down the center of the butterflies. So this is my Stardust glitter pen, just to add a little detail. Again, you don't end up seeing this much, nor do you see the stenciling on these butterflies a whole lot, but you will on the next card. Now, to finish this card off was very easy. I added some of those iridescent bubble gems right inside of the butterfly ring, just for some shine. In the center, I glued a few additional white circle die cuts and stamped a sentiment on top. Now, our note card is white, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and I had a few of those white die cut backgrounds left over, so I glued those back there just for a little tone on tone interest. Now the sentiment is from this Waffle Flower Fresh Rainbow Sentiment stamp set, which I've used before. I really like the positive sentiments in here, and I thought this one worked great for this card. Okay, now we have that rainbow ring left over, and you can see the stenciling more on this one. Now notice that ring is built up. There's dimension to it. All I did for that is I put glue on the back of the rainbow ring, and remember we had some white die cut rings left over from the technique earlier. I glued those behind it so it's stacked 3 tall, and then I glued it to one of the solid white die cuts. Very easy, nothing fancy. I did add little tiny white heart die cuts layered up inside of each of the butterflies. That took a little bit of time because I couldn't use the trick for it. I just had a bunch of individual heart die cuts, but I thought it was worth it to layer those inside of the butterflies. And again, I added some iridescent gemstones. Now for the background, I used the Waffle Flower piercing panel die, which you'll see in a moment, and it just creates those little dots in the background. Just adds a little interest. That hello sentiment is from the Waffle Flower Big Dots sentiment stamp set, which was on my favorites list for this year. A great basic set that fits nicely in circles or cut cardstock pieces. All right, let's do another pair of cards. This time I used a die that doesn't have as many cut pieces, but it still works great for this. You could individually glue all these butterflies together, but again, I found the technique to be helpful. For this card, I thought it would be best to start with the background. So I have that piercing die that I used on my last card. You can see it just creates little dots with a frame around it. I used that on white cardstock. You can see that here. And I glued a Waffle Flower Flying Butterflies die cut on top of it. Just one layer, white cardstock. There's the die there. You can see it cuts the outline and the butterflies. Now I'm putting some tape on the back of this butterfly die cut. Now remember how I used masking paper before? Here I'm just using pieces of tape that I can reuse. I'm cutting that from white cardstock and keeping all those little pieces in the die. Now this die again cuts the outline and the butterflies. I don't need the outline for this card, so I'm going to carefully remove the outline die cut from the die. The tape on the back of the die is keeping those butterflies in place, except that one I missed there. So I'll just put it right back into place. Now I want to inlay all those butterflies into the outline butterfly on our card over here on the right. So I'm filling the openings of the outline butterfly die cut with adhesive. Now I'll take this and just pop it right on top. So this time we're inlaying the pieces. After I pop the die cut on top of the outline die cut on our card, I can just press those butterflies into the adhesive and then remove the tape. Now my white butterflies are inlaid into that white butterfly outline on our card. So there you can see all the butterflies are inlaid. You could have done each of those individually. I just found this faster. Now let's repeat the process. I have white cardstock, put tape on the back of the die, ran that through my die cut machine. Now I can remove the outline die cut, but keep all the little butterflies inside of the die. I'll put adhesive on the butterflies on my card, pick up the die, line it up, pop it right in place, leave it there for a few minutes, remove the tape if you want to, and then when you remove the die, the butterflies will stay behind on our card, and we'll have a second layer of butterflies built up. And I'll do this a few more times to build up the butterflies. So you'll have a 1-layer outline and lots of butterflies layered up inside of that outline. Next, we can create the color butterflies to go on top. Now you could use pattern paper, scraps, glitter paper, anything you want here. I decided to again do ink blending. So I did a purple, pink, orange, and yellow blended background. Not perfect by any means, but it doesn't matter. I then used that pierce panel die to create that piercing across this piece. I just think it adds really cool interest in person. Now I decided I wanted to use this sunburst stencil again. So I pressed white pigment ink onto my work surface, and I have a blending brush that I only use for white pigment ink. You could use any inking tool. I'm just kind of adding some white ink in areas just here and there to create little rays on our inked background. Now in the end, you won't see this much because I didn't add enough white pigment ink. But I thought it would look cool. You can see it a little bit. Next time I would apply a heavier amount of white pigment ink so more of it would show up. Now it's time to do the technique again. So I'll use the outline butterfly die to cut from this inked piece. When I take it out of my die cut machine, you can see all the butterflies are still in the die. I'm putting adhesive on top of the butterflies on our card. Those are all layered up already. And now I can take this die, line it up, press those butterflies into place. After I give it a few minutes to dry, I can remove the die and check that out. The top layer now has all that color on it. Didn't take long to put all those pieces in place. And we have the piercing texture on our background and on the butterflies. For a sentiment on this, I used the Waffle Flower Oversized Grace and Kindness die set. Now there's this stamp set and the die set coordinates. Grace and kindness are two of my favorite words to use, so I'm excited about this and all the different messages you can build up. Now the word grace is also in the set along with the shadow die, but Lila took it already because that's her middle name and so she wanted to use it, but it is in the set. So I use the word kindness. I cut it twice from white cardstock and one from black glossy cardstock and glued that together and added it onto our card. I love the style of that. There is a shadow die included, which you can also use with the coordinating stamp set, but I just used the kindness die cut itself. I also added a small sending word above it. That's from the Simon's Stamp Tiny Word stamp set. I just wanted something small there. And I added some of those iridescent bubble gems to the background. Now you may notice that my note card isn't white anymore. I trimmed my note card down to a smaller card panel and added it to a black note card. So there would be that black trim. I really like that finishing look. And I just put a piece of white cardstock on the inside so I could write a personal message. I am a big fan of these layered butterflies. I think it adds a lot to it over just gluing it flat on the card. Okay, now remember we still have that inked butterfly outline die cut. Let's use that to make our second card. I love 2-for-1 techniques. Now notice on the white note card background, you can see some glitter butterflies. I did some quick stenciling for that. Now in this release, Waffle Flower has a few different butterfly stencils. This big one is cool. I think you could do a lot of great inking techniques with it. I like how they have the negative space stencil and then the mask itself, so you could create a really cool look. There's also this one that lines up with a stamp set. You'll see me use this one later. But the stencil I'm using on this card is the butterfly's background. I have a white note card that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I have it laying open and I masked off the back of the card with some tape. I'm applying Gina K Glitter Glitz Iridescent Gel over the stencil, just making an even layer across the whole thing. I'll then remove my stencil and wash it, and there you can see how I have those iridescent butterflies in the background. Add some interest, but not too distracting. Now let me tell you how I finished the rest of this card very easy. I have that colorful outline die cut left over from the last card. So you can see that orange and pink outline die cut. I also die cut from holographic cardstock and inlaid each of those little butterflies. I thought that would be fun to add to the sparkle of the card. And to add a bit more color, I added some Studio Katia Persimmon pearls. I decided to go big for the sentiment, so I used the Waffle Flower Oversized Hello die. I've used this one before. They have these large dies and lots of different words. I like how they fill a card nicely. And I die cut that from black glossy cardstock. I also added a sentiment strip that says Enjoy Your Day, which is from this Waffle Flower Happy Birthday sentiment stamp set. I have one more bonus card for you and a really fun inking tip. Now this uses the leftover white glitter cardstock that we have from our first card. I still had that, didn't want it to go to waste. But let's make that butterfly there. I used the Waffle Flower Spread Your Wings stamp set. I like the playful look of this. I'm into butterflies, I warn you, you're going to see a lot of them this month. And I wanted to show you a tip for creating a rainbow butterfly or rainbow inked area very quickly. I'm using the butterfly stencil that matches with the stamp. Now on the top edges, I'm putting picked raspberry Distress Oxide ink. On the bottom edges of the butterfly, I'll apply a blue. I decided to use the Salvaged Patina, the new color, because it's so beautiful. So I put that towards the bottom edge. Then in the middle, I'll apply a yellow, and I use Squeeze Lemonade for this. Now I'll make sure that the Squeeze Lemonade overlaps with the pink and the blue I've already put down, and you automatically have a rainbow. Where it overlaps, you create orange and green, and look how fast that was. Now I'll use the stamp from the stamp set and stamp right on top of that with black pigment ink. Then I can use the coordinating die to cut it out. Super fast and easy to create that beautiful rainbow butterfly. Now here is our note card, 4¼ by 5½ inches. And I used that white glitter cardstock die cut from before. And I glued 2 additional white die cuts behind it so it would stand up against our background. I wish you could see the color of this glitter in real life. It's so pretty. I added the butterfly die cut to the center, along with a few little black gemstones for a little bit of interest. Now the sentiment is from this Caring Hands sentiment stamp set. There's one that says, "Take care, my friend." I put "Take care" on the front and "My friend" on the inside. So there you have another card made from the technique earlier on. Now before we go, I just wanted to show you a die set that I didn't have time to use today, but I thought it was really cute. This is the new social phone die from Waffle Flower. You have all these different dies that you can use together to create a phone image. And I just think that's fun and could be used with a lot of your small images. All right, there you have it, my current favorite die cutting hack. It's a great way to build up layers on your cards and easily handle all those tiny little die cut pieces. I hope you'll try this. It would work great with any background die or die that cuts small pieces. Now, if you are interested in the supplies that I did use in this video, I always make sure to link them to multiple sources in my description below. Makes it easier for you to find. Now here at the end, I will have my blog linked at the top right, and I have 2 other die cutting trick videos here in the middle that you can check out. Thank you for spending this time with me. I always appreciate it. I know my videos are long, but I hope it was worth watching. Take care and have a great day.